Namaskar. Welcome to this session. We concluded the sutras on dharna, dhyana and samadhi. And therein, the important thing to be noted is that Yogi doesn't decide on the support of dharna, dhyana, samadhi. Yogi doesn't decide that I am going to do dharna, dhyana, samadhi on Prithvi Tattva, Ap Tattva, Tej Tattva, Ayu Tattva, Akash Tattva. He doesn't decide that I am going to do dharna, dhyana, samadhi on lotus. He doesn't decide that I am going to do that on Bhagwan Sri Krishna, Bhagwan Sri Rama. He doesn't decide that I am going to do that on Dattatreya or Shiva or Narsimha. So point is that he doesn't decide. Like Drushtanta Swapna, that kind of dream, the allegorical dream which appears in the mind. The Samadhi object appears in the mind out of the Pranava. The Pranava Anusandhana, Pranava Japa, Pranava Anusandhana. From Pranava, the object of dharna, dhyana, samadhi, which is always metaphysical, appears in the mind, like the dream object appearing in the mind. And then dharna, dhyana, samadhi happens on that support. So point to be noted is that Yogi doesn't decide on support of dhyana, but the support of dhyana appears in the Chitta, which is pranavized. Like unless you go to sleep, the dream won't appear. So unless the Chitta is pranavized, Omified, the support of dharna, dhyana, samadhi would not appear. And once it appears, the samadhi will be either Vicharanugata, and then it can escalate to Vichaara. It will commence at Vitarka, it will escalate to Vicharanugata, further escalate to Ananda, and then further escalate to Asmitanugata. So therefore in mysticism it is said that it is the desire of divinity, Antaryami, that there will be Grahya Samapatti, Grahana Samapatti or Grahitru Samapatti. So the Antaryami decides as to what should be the support and which should be support for dharna, dhyana, samadhi. And the process escalates thereafter. So that is how the aspect of mysticism in samadhi or dharna, dhyana, samadhi is to be understood. So it is a process, as we have seen umpteen number of times, starting from Sthula pranayama. It becomes a continuous, uninterrupted process. And in that process, a phase of dharana comes up. And then the phase of dhyana comes up. And then the phase of samadhi comes up. So, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, as we saw during the last session, it is uniquely integral practice, integrated practice. All the entire yoga is integrated process. Dharana, dhyana, samadhi stands out in that respect. And therefore, aphorism comes up, Trayam, ekatra, Samyama. So, the three coming together, in other words, complete accomplishment of the process means it is Samyama. Otherwise, the process can get interrupted at dharna. Dharna has actualized but dhyana did not appear. Possible. Dharna and dhyana appeared but samadhi did not appear. Possible. But dharna, dhyana, samadhi happening is accomplishment of the process, and that accomplishment of the process is given a technical term called Samyama. So, it is an uninterrupted process and a completed process, accomplished process. Then it is called Samyama. So that's a technical term. Samyama is a technical term. It should not be messed up with the literal meaning. So this has been clarified by Vyasa in his commentary that this is a technical term, because Samyama is also a word with literal meaning. In order that literal meaning is not taken and technical meaning to be taken, Vyasa makes an express statement that it is a technical term, Tantrika Paribhasha. Now, what is going to follow is several siddhis. About 30-35 siddhis will be mentioned. And all these siddhis are from Samyama. And this often will come in the sutra, Amuka Samyamat Amuka Siddhi, Tamuka Samyamat Tamuka Siddhi. So that means dharna, dhyana, samadhi accomplished, the process accomplished to acme has a technical term called Samyama. And that's why the technical term has been introduced. So, Samyama means technically and actually it is samuchaya of dharna, dhyana, samadhi. It is collocation of dharna, dhyana, samadhi, because each one has different definition which we saw. So when it is a samuchaya, where it is collocation, then it is called Samyama. So that is what we get a mention in the Sutra 3.5. Trayam ekatra samyamaha. And then comes the sutra Tajjayat pragnya lokaha. So Trayam ekatra samyamaha is the sutra number 4, and Tajjayat pragnya lokaha is the sutra number 5, and Tasya bhumishu viniyogaha is the sutra number 6. So, in the sutra, Tajjayat pragnya lokaha, pragnya aloka, Tajjayat, that means Samyama jayat. By Samyama being attained, the various planes of yoga are also attained, and that is why the sutra comes up, Tasya bhumeshu viniyogaha. So we are aware of the concept of Samadhi Siddhi. Samadhi Siddhi means also that by each Samadhi there is some attainment. There is always some kind of bequeathment coming from each Samadhi. And what it bestows is a kind of plane. So, whenever there is a Samyama for a yogi, he attains a field. He attains a higher plane, a higher platform of attainment. So therefore, the sutra comes up Tajjayat prajna lokaha. Tajjayat. Samyama being conquered. That means dharna, dhyana, samadhi being conquered. The three being conquered. So now the practices are not interrupted in between because of lack of qualification. Now there is a qualification, there is also empowerment, that the practice of the entire process, starting from Sthula pranayama to Sukshma pranayama to Pranava to Pratyahar to Dharna, Dhyana, Samadhi, there is qualification, there is empowerment. That is called Tajjayat. So now the yogi is now equipped to be accomplishing the process. And that capacity, capability, qualification and empowerment to accomplish the process is called Samyama Jaya. Tajjayat, Samyama Jayat. What happens? Prajna alokaha. It gives that wisdom, prajna. The prajna prakasha, the light or effulgence of wisdom also expands. So that prajna prakasha is attained, and then as the samyama is proceeding, plane after plane after plane, the prajna prakasha, the effulgence of the subjectivistic light goes on increasing. So samyama always gives a prajna prasada. It always gives that internal illumination in consciousness. So Vyasa tells us here, tasya samyamasya jayat. Tajjayat means tasya samyamasya jayat. Samadhi prajnaya bhavati. Samadhi prajna happens. Aloko yatha yatha samyamaha sthirapado bhavati tata tata samadhi prajna visharadi bhavati. So as the samyam gets established in a yogi, sthirapado bhavati gets established in a yogi, tatha tatha samadhi prajna visharadi bhavati. Correspondingly, the samadhi prajna also becomes more and more luminous, effulgent. So, yogi is going to attain different planes, levels. And therefore, the sixth sutra comes up, tasya bhumeshu viniyogaha. So, the samyama and tatphala, aloka, it should be used, applied, viniyogaha. It should be applied and used for higher planes, higher and higher planes. Because usually it happens because of mundane and mortal gravities. When you have a power, you start using the power on a lower plane. Now, that is not to be done in case of a yogi. He should not use the powers for lower planes. Whatever power is attained, that must be invested for a higher plane, that must be invested into higher plane of attainment, so that the yogi will be in a progressive trend, rather than the natural tendency to use the power on a lower plane and get the name, fame, recognition. So that should not be done. When the yogi gets a plane of siddhi, now that should be used as a stepping stone to go to next rung, and not use it for lower attainments which are worldly gains. So tasya bhumeshu viniyogaha. It should be invested into uttarottara bhumi. So Vyasa tells us here, tasya samyamasya jita bhume ya alokaha bhumihi tatra viniyogaha. So it should be used on higher plane. Whatever plane the yogi is, he must use the attained siddhi, attained power for subsequent plane and not earlier plane. That is called viniyoga, proper usage. Nahi ajita adara bhubihi anantara bhumim viplavasya pranta bhumeshu samyama labate. The plane that is not yet conquered that should be the source of investing our power. We should not invest the power on Jita Bhumi, but it should be invested for Ajita Bhumi. But with a given power, you cannot be using it for higher plane. That is what Vyasa tells us here. This is what is human tendency. We are given resources and we try to use the resources for higher attainments. We want to conquer the unconquered by whatever we have conquered. But Vyasa tells us, Nahi ajita adhara bhumihi anantara bhumim ullanghya pranta bhumeshu samyama labate. You can't attain the higher power by lower caliber of siddhi. Therefore, it must be invested for evolvement and not try to use it for higher plane, because the potency of the power that you have attained is insufficient for unconquered higher plane. How can you then therefore attain the higher plane by that, if you invest it for that purpose? And therefore there must be proper management. Management of the glories, that once you attain the glory, you must see how much you can be doing with it, and it should be for attaining higher plane. It should be always investment. Whenever you get income out of your samyama, it must be invested to higher plane and it should not be spent on lower plane. This is very important for human psyche. When we get money, we spend it for our needs. Like money spending and money investing, there is a difference. In fiscal management, usually people spend the money and wise people invest the money. So what is suggested here, if yogi attains some glory, it must be invested on a higher plane and not spent on lower plane. And whatever resources you have attained, those resources cannot make you buy higher plane. You cannot buy higher plane, it should be invested. And that's how one must opt for escalation. So how can the lower prajna give you higher attainment? That means the question is telling us that it is not possible. It is negating. It is negating that you will attain something. Some interrogations are such which suggest impossibility. How will the child climb up the mountain? This is not a question. How will the baby climb up? It is not a question. It says that the baby cannot climb up. A child cannot climb up. So similarly, there is an interrogative statement in the Vyasa's commentary which tells us that it is not possible. But, and similarly he says, by Ishvara Prasada, if you attain higher plane, then it should not be invested into Adhara Bhumi. You can attain it by Ishvara Prasada. Ishvara Prasada Jita Uttara Bhumi Kasya Nacha Adhara Bhumishu Parachitta Jnanadishu Samyamo Yuktaha. Of course, the grace of God can give you anything. That is what the religious consciousness tells you. But then even by Ishvara Prasada, if you are attaining, it should be used for higher planes. It should be used for investing into higher planes rather than expending into lower planes such as Parachitta Jnana, which is a kind of allurement on worldly plane, that you want to know somebody else's mind. Look into peep into personal life of someone else with that power. Parachitta Jnana Adi. So when it is attained by Ishvara Prasada, then it should be used for Uttara Bhumi Jaya and not used for Adhara Bhumi purpose. And Vyasa makes it clear that in Uttara Bhumi, the Purva Bhumi is included. So you don't have to budge down to lower plane. As you climb up the higher plane, the lower planes are included in it. Kasmat tad arthasya anyata eva avagatatvat. The Purva Bhumi Jaya will give you Uttarottara Bhumi. Rather the Uttarottara Bhumi will include the Purva Bhumi. So you don't have to try and test it. So when you have higher attained, the lower is included. So why try to test whether you have the lower? And then what is the lower plane and what is the higher plane? What is going to divulge you this? That this is a lower plane and that is a higher plane, or this is a previous plane and that is a subsequent plane, that this is going to follow that plane, this is preceded that plane, and that will going to follow this plane. This guideline comes from within. Or the Guru, the Upadhyaya, the teachers will tell you, if you can't identify which is the lower plane and which is the higher plane, the Guru is the one who tells you about it. Your teacher will tell you about it, that this is a lower plane and that's a higher plane. And the yoga itself will be raising up the structure of yoga, because each plane of Samyama is a yoga, and then there will be floors laid one over the other to create a lofty mansion, skyscraper. The yoga itself is going to build up yoga. And he quotes here, he brings a quotation, Yogena yogo gnatavyo yogo yogat pravartate ya aprabhatastu yogena sa yoge ramate chiram. The yoga evolves by yoga. Yoga is known by yoga. Yoga is realized by yoga. Yoga is developed by yoga. Yoga is structured by yoga. Yoga it comes from yoga. Yoga is by yoga. And therefore, if one is absolutely heedless, careless about yoga, then one would be attaining it. And therefore, the yogis are callous free. They are heedless because they know that a yoga is going to evolve yoga in them, and therefore they don't want to leave yoga. They are not allured by something else that will give me higher plane. They know that yoga is itself going to give the higher plane, and therefore apramattena they practice. Apramattastu yogena sa yoge ramate chiram. And therefore the yogi remains in yoga because he knows that yoga is going to bestow yoga. So, the sutra number 6 tells us that the powers that comes through Samyama should be used for scaling up and not use them for name, fame, recognition. Because allurements will come yogi's way. And one should not be a victim of allurements. In that case, the power will be expended. And power expended means power slowly dwindling. In order that it doesn't dwindle, it must be invested into higher plane. This is what is the guideline coming from Patanjali. Because as you get powers, you start exploiting. This is human tendency. And you start encashing your powers by way of name, fame, recognition, celebrityhood. So you start encashing them. So not to encash but to invest. This is what is being suggested. Because yogi's path is glorious. And later we will be told about that yogi is presented with lots of enticements and allurements. So yogis can be victim of all those allurements. In order that that should not happen, Patanjali alerts the Samadhi sadhaka. So with that we come to the 7th sutra, which is going to tell us about the classification of Antaranga of yoga and Bahiranga of yoga. And therefore he says Trayam Antarangam Purvebhyaha Yamaniyamadi Pratyahar Paryantam Purvebhyaha. They are preceding Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. So Trayam Antarangam Purvebhyaha. So whatever was mentioned up to Pratyahar, now this is Antarangam compared to those. So Trayam Antarangam Purvebhyaha. Purvebhyaha means the Bahirangam, and now this is Antarangam. So Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi are Antaranga of Ashtanga Yoga. They are Antaranga of Yamaniyama, Asana, Pranayam, Pratyahar. Compared to them, these three are Antarangam. So this is made clear by Patanjali. We had considered earlier, we had deliberated on the concept of Antaranga of Ashtanga and Bahiranga of Ashtanga Yoga, or Bahiranga of Ashtanga Yoga and Antaranga of Ashtanga Yoga. And here comes that mention in the sutra, Trayam Antarangam Purvebhyaha. Tad etad dharana dhyana samadhi trayam antarangam samprajnatasya samadhi purvebhyo yamadhiyamadibhyaha panchabhyaha sadhanebhyaha iti. So yamaniyamadi 5 limbs, compared to them, this is antarangam, therefore they are bahirangam. So these are antarangam in samprajnata yoga. This is what Vyasa makes it clear. Why? Why does it make it clear? Because Patanjali is going to bring the 8th sutra, Tadapi Bahirangam Niribijasya. But this Antarangam itself is Bahirangam compared to, or with reference to, in the light of Asamprajnata Samadhi, the Antarangam itself is Bahirangam. And therefore he says, Tadapi Bahirangam Niribijasya. Niribija Samadhi is Asamprajnata Samadhi. So compared to, or in the light of, or with reference to Asamprajnata Samadhi, even the dharna dhyan samadhi referred to as Antarangam or Bahirangam. So that is explicit in the Sutra 3.8. Tadapi Bahirangam Niribijasya. So Vyasa tells us here, Tadapi Antarangam Sadhana Trayam Niribijasya Yogasya Bahirangam Bhavati. So a clear and emphatic statement that for Asamprajnata Samadhi, Dharna Dhyan Samadhi are Bahiranga. Kasmad Tad Abhave Bhavat Iti. Why so? Because Dharnadi Traya, Dharna Dhyan Samadhi must be crossed over. And when they are crossed over, then only Nirbija Samadhi comes up. And therefore, Nirbija Samadhi is Antarangam if Dharna Dhyan Samadhi is Bahirangam. If and when Dharna Dhyan Samadhi is Bahirangam. So, the classification for the Samadhi, the sadhanas comes up here. Bahirangam of Ashtanga Yoga, Antarangam of Ashtanga Yoga, and Antaratma of Ashtanga Yoga. Antaratma is Asamprajnat. Antarangam is Dharna Dhyan Samadhi, and Bahirangam are Yama Niyama Asana Pranayam Pratyahara. So the Samadhi would be coming up by the Antaranga Sadhana. Now, how does it all come about? If Samadhi is transformation, as we have seen often, Vyasa makes enunciation to the sutra that is going to follow, which is going to describe paranamas, transformations. Atha nirodha chitta lakshaneshu chalam gunavrittam iti kidrusha tada chittam paranamaha. Now the chitta is made up of gunas. Gunas have substantive quality of the nature of chanchalatvam, fugitivity. Now how at all the nirodha can come in such the chitta? Because chitta is made up of gunas, and gunas are fugitive, gunas are chanchala. How will the Samadhi come up? And therefore, he embarks upon that the whole process of transformation, which seems improbable. Now, he gives the basis for us to really get convinced that such paranama is possible, plausible. And therefore, he embarks upon a passage of sutras which are describing the Chitta Paranama Krama. So that's going to be a fascinating topic, because it is going to tell us in greater details how the Samadhi comes about. We had some idea of this in the Samapatti topic as to how Samadhi comes about. Now we are going to get furthermore in-depth kind of view about how does Samadhi come about in the Chitta, which is Gunatmaka, and the Gunas being very fugitive. How at all the Samadhi Paranam can happen, or the Paranama that Samadhi mentions can happen. And therefore the topic is going to commence from Sutra 3.9. So with this, we are concluding the topic of Antaranga of Yoga and little guidelines to tell us that any attainments must be invested and not expended. Any reap that comes up through prajna, samadhi prajna, must be invested and not expended. So with a piece of wisdom, the topic ends. And now we embark upon a new topic called Chitta Parinama. That is from 3.9 onwards. So with that, we are ending this session. Namaskar all of you.